Now this is a flight I was very excited for, and for one main reason: the room. ANA's outrageously wide seat with closing doors, large screen, and more. Could this business class seat rival a true first class seat? Well, let's find out. Also no, it's not clickbait, we really did become the most watched flight on Flight Radar for a short while. My trip began at Tokyo Haneda Airport, and I arrived a tad too early as the business class check-in wasn't open yet. But that wasn't a problem, because the views from the check-in area were amazing. Huge floor-to-ceiling windows with views across the apron and planes taking off right in front of you. Naturally, the check-in process was quick, and there was a dedicated priority line heading towards security, although it didn't make much of a difference at this time of day. Once airside, I made my way up the escalator to the lounge, and wow, what an entrance. Even though this was just the reception area, it felt so clean, sleek, and definitely had a premium feel to it. Then I walked into the actual lounge, and again, holy moly, what an insane space. There are some lounges that are small, intimate affairs. This was not that, at all. The ANA Business Lounge at Haneda was impressively large, but also well thought out in how the space has been utilised. It's not just a big area with uniform seating. There were individual armchairs, each with a mini table, couches, seating pods, rest area, phone call booths, and importantly, power outlets all throughout as well. The food is an integral part of any good lounge, and ANA also delivered on that front, with a live cooking station, noodle bar, buffet selection, and a fancy self-serve machine for rice and chicken curry. I had a light snack, watched some planes, and then headed down to explore the gates, which had a nifty digital signboard with gate and flight information. Of course, I checked to make sure my gate existed, and there she was. The Boeing 777-300ER that would be taking us to London. And critically, it's an ANA 777 that has been fitted with the room business class, as well as first class, premium economy, and economy. But a large proportion of the plane is taken up with business class. This is a seat that I was insanely keen to try out. It's a unique product, no other airline has it, and the anticipation and excitement just walking down the jet bridge was growing with every step. First impression, again, no other word for it, but wow, this is insane. My seat was in the small mini cabin of just 2 rows towards the front, but the main business cabin was enormous. Now, let's have a closer look at my seat. The first thing to note is that although it's a 1-2-1 layout, the seats actually alternate between facing forwards or backwards. Although you get the same full width of the seat, the seating position changes to be closer to the aisle or closer to the window, depending on which way you face. So, with my forward-facing window seat, I sat closer to the aisle. Nevertheless, the sheer space on offer here was incredible. It reminded me of the old Singapore Airlines super wide business class seat on the A380 and 777s. Personally, I loved those seats, but they did have some mixed reviews. However, on first impressions, the ANA seat seems to have addressed some of those complaints people had about Singapore before. I mean, just look at it. This is a business class seat, and you could easily sit 2 people side by side. The colours and finishes were also significantly nicer and more appealing to the eye compared to the 787 and older 777 design. As you've seen, on my seat were the usual amenities and tidbits you would expect, but with the luxury of 2 pillows, each with a different type of feel. Having a more detailed look at the seat itself is an ultra-wide bench seat, with reading lights at the top on each side. What's important to note here is the seatbelt position. So although you do have the wide seat, the area you're supposed to sit in is about half the width. You can loosen the belt and move around a bit, which is what I did. But when you look forward, the footrest is clearly in line with where you're meant to sit. To state the bleeding obvious, leg room and shoulder room are not a concern here. The pre-departure drinks choice was between orange juice or champagne. The IFE screen was a good size, but maybe they could have reduced the border around the edges to increase the size of the screen a bit more. Under the screen was a slide out and fold out dining table, with handy green indicator to let you know when it had been properly stowed back into position. Towards the aisle there was another light, coat hook, and the door release button. Further back, there was another button to release the privacy screen and a headphone jack. Then of course the reading lights I mentioned before, and working our way around to the other side of the seat, there was a USB charging port, another headphone jack, and life jacket. The window was electronically operated and had 2 stages of shades, which is a great idea in my opinion. Then we finally work our way around to the side console, which had seat controls and the IFE remote. On top was a cupboard with more storage space, a mirror, USB, and general power outlet, as well as HDMI, which I wasn't sure how to use, nor could I test it because I don't casually carry around a cable. My seat came with the bonus gift of one single used earplug as well. Underneath the side console was yet more storage, for what I assume is a shoe storage area, but it could also be used for hand luggage in flight. On top, more lights and air vents. With the doors open, you can see others, but this all changes as soon as you're up in the air and can enclose your suite. In case it's all too much, ANA had video guides on how to use the seat and a rundown of the features. Just in case there weren't enough features already, the icing on the cake were the exterior cameras with forward and downward views, and super clear picture quality. Like I said before, wow. In terms of the hard product, the physical seat and features, there was absolutely nothing lacking for me. This seat ticked pretty much every box so far, but there was still 14 hours to go, and I was yet to recline or try and sleep. We pushed back and I enjoyed watching the cameras, a unique perspective you don't often get to see. Once we were high enough, the curtains to the very front were closed, reminding us of our position in the pecking order. The good news was, we could now use the doors and block out others as well. Even with just the small divider raised, the sense of privacy immediately increased, and the seat started to feel more like a suite. With the door closed, I was now fully blocked off at eye level from other passengers, and had my own enclosed room. There was a small gap between the doors, but it didn't feel like an opening or anything. From the outside, the privacy from an external standing position was better than expected. Yes, you could see in, but the seat was still very closed off to the aisle. To recline, the base and backrest slides down and forward together. It's comfortable, but some additional underthigh and calf support to bridge the gap to the footrest would have been good. The toilet was clean, stocked with extra amenities, and had a Japanese-style toilet for ultimate rear cleanliness. Back at my seat, it was time to browse the menu. On my previous flight, I had found the meal service slightly disappointing, so I was eager to see how it compared to a home-based departure. There was a choice of Japanese or international cuisine. But what I found interesting and slightly disappointing was that the food was the same for different destinations. It's not unheard of for a premium airline to have destination-specific catering to suit the customer palates of different countries. Given this menu had the same items in English, French and German, one could assume that it means they sent the same food to anywhere in Europe. Please note, this isn't a complaint, just an observation. While I waited for lunch, I had a browse through the IFE, which was much easier to use and navigate than on the 787. You could also browse on the remote and then send shows to start on the big screen. Onboard Wi-Fi was available with free access for business class passengers. Lunch began with a small starter. The prawn was okay, but the cracker was a bit odd and dry. For this flight, I figured it would be best to try the Japanese meal since we were departing from Japan. The starters looked amazing, colourful and well presented. The central plate was interesting, but unfortunately it just wasn't my thing. Everything had a unique taste and texture, with quality ingredients and components, but all the items were cold, and overall, it just wasn't the type of food that had me wishing there was more. The main dish did have hot food, but neither the steamed beef nor the fish really stood out for me personally. I don't want you to think the food was bad. To me, I accepted it as my personal preference in food not being aligned with what ANA was offering in their Japanese meal. That's probably the most diplomatic way of putting it. For dessert, I had the melty chocolate, which was more like a chocolate mousse, and a tub of ice cream. Although we had only just taken off in the morning, with the route we were taking, it was about to get dark soon. The crew brought around some chocolates and I watched some TV before going for a quick stroll and coming back to make my bed. Again, the width just made everything seem next level. Obviously, as you can see, you don't have the full width and length, plus the seatbelt situation meant that my legs were pushed to one side, but even so, there was plenty of room to position my upper body across the width available at the top. I've never been in a business class seat where I could sleep on my side and fully extend my arm out to the side. The choice of 2 pillows was a nice option as well. I used the firmer, taller pillow which gave excellent head and neck support. The sleeping surface was comfortable with a mattress pad, but there was a slight change in level between the seat and the foot cubby. With the doors closed, there was a real sense of privacy and it felt like I had my own bedroom. For a business class bed, this was a cut above the rest. The crew handed out bottles of water, I got some sleep accessories, and ended up napping for around 3 hours before waking up hungry for some snacks. ANA's in-flight snack menu had more options to choose from compared to the main meals, which I found a bit funny, with 16 potential items. I went for a mix of hot and cold dishes, with a prawn and tuna sandwich, Japanese rice ball set, and plant-based ramen. The sandwich was a bit uninspiring, but the ramen and rice ball set were great snacks. I felt pretty awake at this point, so instead of trying to sleep again, I watched a movie and took in the sunrise. Around 1.5 hours before landing, the crew came around and handed out our pre-landing meal. The only choice was international or Japanese meal again. No options within either category, just one dish, which for me was a chicken and mushroom risotto. It was warm and hearty, nothing fancy, but an okay meal to end the flight. I tidied up and got my seat ready to land, with the crew coming around handing out some ANA postcards as souvenirs. So, what did I think of ANA's The Room business class? In case it wasn't already obvious, I absolutely love the seat. The only thing stopping this from being a full-on first-class level product is the narrowing of the foot cubby instead of a full-width bed the whole way. But other than that, this was by far one of the nicest business class seats I've experienced in a long time. If you're into trying different business class hard products, add this to the list for sure. Apart from alternating in direction, there isn't a bad seat either, with all seats having just as much space as one another. However, the forward mini cabin is more cozy if you manage to select a seat up front. The service was fine, and I would say being in the mini cabin meant I may have got things a little quicker than if I was in the larger section. But unfortunately, the food still left a bit to be desired on this flight as well, just like my previous ANA experience. Now, I didn't lie at the start. This is when we became the most watched flight on Flight Radar. The previous aircraft didn't vacate in time, and we ended up too close, so I had to go around. From memory, there's only one other time that I had to go around, so it was cool to hear the GE90 spool up again and power us back into the air. The exterior cameras made the experience much more interesting compared to just looking sideways out the window. The crew made an announcement to keep us informed, and we made our way around to try and land again.
Dear passengers, the captain has decided to make a go around. We will provide you with a further detail as soon as possible.
So, final recap with our second attempt to land. ANA's 777 with The Room should be on your list to try. Not necessarily for the food and service, but it's worth it just for the seat alone.